The state's decision to move some juvenile offenders to Angola has sparked fierce controversy, even from the federal judge who allowed the transfer.
Well, juvenile justice advocates, they say that they highlight some serious dark secrets about the Louisiana prison system, saying teenagers there are often abused and turn suicidal.
Tonight, investigative reporter Mike Pearlstein introduces us to one of those inmates whose family says they're concerned for his very survival.
Alonzo Defillo Jr. was known as Pee-wee by his family because he shares his father's name.
The name Pee-wee does a really good job of describing him physically. He was tiny.
Pee-wee was the oldest child in a loving family, but in his early teens, hardship struck with a vengeance. When he was 14, he found his grandmother dead at their home. Pee-wee was already diagnosed with mental health problems, and when he turned 15, darkness descended again.
He found his mother dead as well in the bathtub, only to find later that his father now was in dire need of a liver transplant.
The oldest of 4 siblings, Pee-wee did not handle the situation well.
He lost. It's painful to talk about, you know? But anyway, he lost it, he cut up.
Pee-wee started getting into fights at school. Then he began breaking into cars. Later, he found himself in the juvenile justice system after getting caught in a stolen car. His family says he borrowed the car, not knowing it was stolen.
It's just from one thing to the next, and it was all petty stuff, you know?
But it was enough for a juvenile judge to put Pee-wee on an ankle bracelet, a move that his family welcomed, especially his 3 uncles, who were all career New Orleans police officers, including his uncle Marlon, who once served as deputy chief.
He was this goofy kid with this huge smile and, you know, a family that supported him so much.
And he kind of settled down. He did well in school. He went back to school. He did very well. That day he left, he hasn't been home since.
Pee-wee and 3 other juveniles were accused in a string of carjackings and robberies in New Orleans and Jefferson Parish. Prosecutors decided to try all the kids as adults. Pee-wee was 15. One police report listed him as 5 feet 2 inches tall, 113 pounds. Juvenile justice advocates say that once kids are prosecuted as adults, families find themselves powerless. Rehabilitative services fall off a cliff.
He's not getting the mental health resources that he needs. He's not getting the education that he needs to be rehabilitated.
Once you get into that system, it doesn't really care who you are. You are in the twilight zone.
With his father given months to live as he waited for a transplant, Pee-wee quickly accepted the same global plea deal as the other defendants, 20 years in prison.
Indicated that he really didn't understand what he was pleading guilty to.
It was a plastic toy gun that the boy had.
No one was injured, that the weapon involved was not a real gun, and that the cars were taken, and typically for joyriding.
As soon as the juveniles were sent to Dixon Correctional Center, Pee-wee's situation was precarious. Coming from a family of cops, he became the target of other inmates.
Alonzo Jr. has been beaten, he's been stabbed, he has been pepper sprayed.
After Alonzo Sr. got a liver transplant in 2018, he visited his son as much as possible. He was shocked by what he saw.
Beat him so bad he lost hearing in this ear. I think, no, the left ear. And when I went to see him, his face was all swollen.
But then when you put a vulnerable child or someone dealing with mental health issues in that environment, it's a form of torture.
At 5 a.m. One morning, when Alonzo Jr. turned 18, he was on a bus headed to Angola.
The Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola, a plantation turned into a sprawling prison farm, has largely shed its label as the nation's bloodiest prison. But it remains a grim place, with more than 70% of the inmates doing life. Yet somehow, while only serving 20 years, Pee-wee was sent there. Corrections officials told the family it would be easier to protect him. Cheri Deatsch, a juvenile public defender who once represented Pee-wee, was surprised by a call from him.
he had been pepper sprayed in his cell, and the guards were not allowing him out to even wash the pepper spray out of his eyes.
We reached out to state prison officials, but we have not heard back. We want to ask specifically about one recent stretch in his stay at Angola. Someone who went to prison as a 15-year-old serving a 20-year sentence ended up on Angola's death row. How does that strike you?
It's appalling. It's infuriating. I mean, again, no child should end up in an adult system, let alone death row.
Oh, and I called up there and said, why is my child on death row? Oh, we don't have, we gotta find somewhere to put him.
Pee-wee is off death row now. He is still locked up most of the time in solitary confinement, but some phone privileges have been restored. During these calls, his family tries to sound optimistic.
There are times when I can hear that he's lost hope, and that most recently he said, I don't think I'll ever get out of here.
He's fighting for his life. You know, I think it's terrible. Every time I call somebody, they done notified one of the guards and they go after him about me calling up there. And they got to the point where he was like, Dad, I don't call up here no more.
The family says they feel paralyzed about what to do next. So they reached out to Channel 4 and enlisted legal help from civil rights attorney Caroline Gabriel. She does most of the calling now.
A lot of communication with the prison. It's difficult to make any real change because, you know, we do get a lot of pushback. This case is a terrible example of how bad it can go when we treat children like adults.
That was Mike Pearlstein reporting. Because Defillo pleaded guilty, his appeal rights are limited, but the family's new attorney is trying to craft an appeal on a humanitarian or civil rights claim.